All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday morning, 11:14 a.m. That's California time here, February 26, 2025. Almost into the month of March already. Springtime is coming up. I tell you, it's supposed to be about 73 degrees here in Northern California. Absolutely beautiful. A little bit of rain as we enter into March. Starting off here along the Pacific coast, off Japan, Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, quite the active events taking place here from the Russia area, the northern end of the Kuril-Kamchatka. Let me show you on this map, all the way down here to the Nankai Trough. This earthquake right here, a 5.8, super deep into the Nankai Trough. This is the area that's expected to produce a Mega-quake any moment now, but also the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench here. We can't leave this out. It's got a lot of activity ramping up on it here. Recently with no big earthquake activity. So anywhere roughly around the northern edge here of the Kuril-Kamchatka all the way down here to the Nankai Trough should be on watch here for some Mega-quake potential. Let me show you guys historical data out here. I do like to pull this up on occasion to show you guys that history repeats itself out here on pretty much a regular interval of years around this area of the Pacific Plate. Now, this area of the Pacific Plate has a lot of earthquake activity because this is pretty much where all the plates subduct, collide, and whatnot. You can see all the arrows. General GPS motion here of the plates. Pacific Plate moving off to the northwest. North American Plate up here to the north, kind of pointing down here towards this area as well. All this being reinforced by the Eurasia Plate here back to the west. Look at the arrows all pointing down in this region. So it doesn't take hundreds, 300 to 400 years for enough strain to produce a Mega-quake similar to what you would see over here across the Cascadia or Southern California. The arrows are just not pointing at each other. That's why it takes a little bit more time to build up some strain. So what we do have here, I pulled up 7.0 and above in this general area. Since records have been kept, obviously there's going to be earthquakes that have not been introduced here to the map. But we got 294 earthquakes of 7.0 and above. The largest so far is a 9.1. Remember the great Japan earthquake here. The Fukushima power plant and all that disaster type event. 2011. Hard to believe it's been that long already, since 2011. Goodness. So that was the biggest one so far. That is into the Japan Trench. Prior to that, big old 9-pointer way up north on the Kuril-Kamchatka. Yes. This area of the subduction zone can see some big earthquakes. That was the last 9-pointer back in 1952 along the Kuril-Kamchatka. Since then, we've seen a number of 8-pointers out here. Back in 1963, an 8.5 on the Kuril-Kamchatka. 1933, back prior here to the 9-pointer, an 8.4. I think the more recent larger event here around the Kuril-Kamchatka is an 8.3 back in 2006. Now, that leaves a whole bunch of areas out here open in terms of seismic gap and potential large-scale earthquake activity. 8.3 Sea of Osk, that was a super deep earthquake, 600 kilometers deep. That is crazy deep into the Sea of Osk region. So this area in itself here has a lot of potential for some Mega-quake. Really not too concerned with the Japan Trench right now since we had that 9-pointer back in 2011. There's always, some concern that we could still see some larger activity, and it has been happening out here. It's been, periodic earthquakes of various magnitudes up and down the board. But this earthquake last night got me thinking here that we are one step closer to seeing, I believe, a Mega-quake out here on the Nankai Trough. This 5.8, 245 miles deep here into that subduction zone. You have to pull up the oceanic trench model to see that beautiful, absolutely well-defined subduction zone. Now, this is where the Filipino plate here is subducting underneath the area to the west here, the northwest. That's going to be on a broader scale model, the Eurasia plate out here in the green. Filipino plate there in the kind of, what is that, salmon color red or just kind of a medium red color? Take your pick right here. So last year, a number of earthquakes sitting down here in the larger size of things, including a 7-pointer and many other 6s as well. That was just off the Nankai Trough down south here. The Japan Meteorological Agency there put out a MegaQuake warning for this area last year and ramped up the potential for a MegaQuake up to 80% here in near term. Nothing happened last year. We've had a few more deeper earthquakes out here in the area. I don't know if they've been in the last 30 months, but within the last few months, some deeper quakes here, but not quite as large as what we had here last night. That's a decent sized earthquake, and it's down in there into the Nankai Trough. So that is a little scary. Now, let me show you guys just a little bit of information here on the Nankai Trough. There's 5 different segments of the Nankai Trough. This is the same area, same region I just showed you there on the map. Right here, just a little bit more zoomed in view. Back in 1944, we had A, B, C, and D rupture without E. Most of the time here, the segments, and I can show you guys on the model, the segments right here. Go back to the latest one, 1946. A, B, C, and D ruptured. First, it started with C and D, producing an M7.9 back in 1944. 2 years later, A and B ruptured. It's got a common frequency of rupturing, if not at the same time, within days or within a couple years, such as 1944, 1946. Prior to that, notice E did not rupture here. E did rupture back in 1854 on the 23rd of December with an 8.4 C, D, and E. And then 1 day later, A and B ruptured. So you get the the common feature here is that these rupture in sequences, in sections, but also within close time frame of each other. But they have been known to produce even bigger quakes than an M8.4 up to, it does have potential to produce a 9-pointer when we see a full rupture. But 1707, they all went together producing an 8.6. Pretty powerful earthquake when they go together. But it doesn't happen all the time when they go together. Sometimes it can be little periods of sections and so on. But look at the time period here. There's not 500, 600 years in between these events. If anything, it's maybe 100 years, maybe less than that. 1854 to 1944, that's less than 100 years. 1707 to 1854, well, that's a little bit more. 1605 to 1707 here, less than 100 years, and so on. But the common thing here is that we may be getting close to that time period. Here we are, 2025, the last somewhat decent events here, excluding 3, was back in 1944. And if the patterns repeat themselves here, it's very possible we could see a rupture of all of them. If you go back and look here at times when it's only A, B, C, and D, leaving out E, it tends to strike about a year late, or 100 years later, less than 100 years later, resulting in all of these sections there going with at least an 8.6. They can build up to more. So seeing that earthquake right here last night got me thinking here that we're going to see something pretty soon. I know there's let's see what we got. Well, following that deep event here last night, looks like a little bit of adjustment further to the east here along the Izu Trench. Pretty shallow adjustment. So this whole area right here is quite strained. Even back here across the just before the subduction zone with that 4.5 sits right about here. So a little concerning here. As far as tsunami, right? Any type of big earthquake like that is unfortunately going to produce a damaging tsunami. According to some estimates, a tsunami generated by a Nankai Trough Mega-quake earthquake could reach heights of up to 30 meters. That's approximately about 98 feet high. That's a big one in certain areas. So with some predictions indicating potential waves exceeding 10 meters in height along the Pacific coast of Japan, depending on the location and severity of the earthquake. Got, some scary potentials here, but it's coming. It's similar to the Cascadia Subduction Zone, but opposite. The land's not over here to the west. It would be over here on the east with the ocean off on the west, if that makes sense. So this is just a layout of the Nankai Trough tsunami mechanism as the Philippine plate subducts here underneath the Eurasia plate on the landslide, right? Look at that going down. This is pulling that plate down with it and ultimately rising a little bit, right? It's pushing up the land, but also warping the land as they both try to pull down underneath the subduction zone area. When that releases and springs back, there's the ultimate result. Look at that land shift adjustment. That's going to create a huge displacement of water. And also, not to mention, you get the Mega-quake shaking, but that tsunami can, sometimes be worse than the shaking itself. So, bad deal when it comes to that location. But it happens. Anywhere there's a major subduction zone, Cascadia, could be the Hikurangi Subduction Zone there in New Zealand. Anywhere there's a major subduction zone can see that type of event. So let me go back here real quick. There it is again. Here's the sections. Well, watch this. It looks like that deeper earthquake struck in section maybe between E and D. Looks like. Might be within there. Maybe a little bit further to the west. But either way, got to watch that because it's a little scary seeing that big deep earthquake right into that major subduction zone. That's coming up on the regular, could be coming up here on the regular interval of large earthquakes. So we'll watch that pretty closely. I don't see any more earthquake activity within the Nankai Trough zone overnight. Just that back building pressure here across the Izu Trench. Got to remember the general plates here in this area pushing off to the northwest, west-northwest here. You got the Pacific plate. That's putting a lot of pressure here on the Filipino plate, which results in pressure here across this area where the two plates, one plate subducts underneath the Eurasia plate. Notice the arrows pointing in this area. So a lot of strain here, and it's starting to show all across this area. Kuril Kamchatka up north, that 5.8 earthquake. Looks like it's just off the Aleutian Trench here, northern edge. That struck this morning, a 5.8, followed up a couple hours later by a 4.6 aftershock, or just, these could very well be foreshocks of something bigger. So I'm watching this area roughly from here all the way down to the Nankai Trough. Like I said, I think we can exclude the Japan Trench here for any Mega-quake potential. Since 2011 there, that 9.1 was a big one. I don't think it's quite ready for another big one yet. But this area up here, Nankai Trough area, keep an eye on this here over the next couple days. It could happen today where we see some larger quake activity. This one here is pretty deep, 199 miles deep underneath the southern edge here of the Sivask. That was this morning, 4.1, 199 miles deep. Goodness, a whole lot going on here, folks, across that area. So let's check out California here real quick. I've covered this area a lot, quite a bit, but that 5.8 last night kind of took me by surprise. I thought we'd see some larger scale movement overnight. It hasn't happened yet, but I think it may happen here near term. Northern California, not a whole lot shown up here on the map. Just a couple smaller earthquakes in the 2 range from last night. Tell me there's nothing going on there today. I don't know. It's been a little choppy here with the reporting out here recently. One earthquake down on China Lake Ridgecrest area. That's a legit earthquake. Let's see if that's being reported. That is showing up right here. The 1.2 within the last 10 minutes. So Southern California working properly with the reporting, but Northern California seems a little choppy there with the events coming in, but not showing up there on the USGS map. Bay Area pretty quiet as well, but that's hard to say if that's actually legit or not. Further down south on the San Andreas Fault, the creeping section, that is called the creeping section, legit area of the San Andreas Fault here that tends to creep, right, in terms of slip. It doesn't build up a lot of strain here to produce big damaging earthquakes. It just got an area of the plate that somewhat freely moves along here, and periodically we'll see some earthquakes forming on it. Yesterday, a three-pointer, 3.3 to be exact, and a number of twos. But that's also been a source of more earthquake activity here in the last week, with about 29 earthquakes of various magnitudes here. And when things start to move along the creeping section, that's when you need to watch areas up north along the northern section of the San Andreas Fault and down south here. Parkfield section and, of course, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Both of these are overdue here, or coming up. I know the southern branch overdue. The Parkfield section here should see a 6-pointer at any given time, with the irregular intervals happening around 22 years or so. The last one was back in 2004, if I remember right. So we're coming up on the 22-year interval of at least another 6-pointer happening. The southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, that's, I've been hearing about it since I was a kid. All the big ones coming. That was a while ago. I'm sure a lot of folks remember hearing that. We're just living now in the future where we could be experiencing that big one. So just keep an eye on the San Andreas Fault. That's been quite active down here as well. We look at the last 30 days. There's been a couple different swarms on it. This one here got me, though, because it's directly on it. And these were not just a bunch of microquakes. These were some 3s, 3.4, 3.6, 3.0. A bunch of earthquakes here happening right along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault here, right where they expect the unzip to happen. So I think we got closer to maybe seeing it, but maybe just not quite enough. As far as a little bump there that would create a domino effect. I'm not hoping it's going to happen, but that's why I do these videos, for preparedness, to be prepared, to watch for signs, and to not become a statistic. I wouldn't want to become one. Got to be able to increase your chances of survival by being prepared out here, knowing what to do. There's a little segment down here, the Brawley Seismic Zone. This is kind of a spreading center down here. Get volcanic activity throughout time there across that area, Salton Sea. One more earthquake this morning. Aside from that, last night, quite a few 1s and 2s out there. Looks like that's calmed down slightly, but I'll continue to keep an eye there on Southern California. Let me bring up 2.5 map. The latest above that level shows a 3.3 off the San Andreas Fault. Getting some strain here just off the Parkfield section inland along the western side of the San Joaquin Valley. That tells me right here that you get that little pressure offset and pressure here to the east. This section is quite loaded, locked. And, of course, that's the area that should be seeing a 6-pointer soon on the regular 22-year intervals that take place there on the Parkfield section. Covered that quite a bit as well. It's coming up. The only concern here is that we may see a rupture on the southern portion of that Parkfield section that could create a domino effect down there. I think a 6-pointer would definitely trigger the San Andreas Fault there. Pinning it's right there in a location pretty close to it, southern area. All right, let's see what else we got. Your Nevada region, quite a few earthquakes out there. Trail of earthquakes up across this mountain range leading up to Yellowstone, but not volcanic activity, just pressurization here. Nothing showing up there on the map for Yellowstone, but I think those guys are still offline. Let me take a look here at the Yellowstone overview. They've been, whoa, that's odd. You go to Well, that's kind of weird. Huh. Maybe I clicked on templates? Maybe that's what it was, yeah. Okay. All right, so Yellowstone. Yeah, this still looks like it's behind here. There's a 5.8 deep earthquake there. I believe that's the one from yesterday. See, this is still behind. This would be local time on the 26th, just after midnight mountain time. So this is 12 hours behind. So we don't know what's happening here in the last 12 hours. But it doesn't look like anything's happening overnight there at Yellowstone. But I don't know what's going on with that, the reporting on that. But it's not working, not up to date. But nothing showing up. I do have a live seismograph station here. I thought I did. Maybe I forgot to add it. I'll have to add back the Yellowstone station here to the seismos. The rest of the country out here, nothing new to report since last night. A couple more earthquakes out in the oil fields of Texas and Oklahoma. No new activity to report there across the east. A couple smaller earthquakes yesterday. Look at that swarm happening down here across the Philippines, south of the Philippines here, into the Molucca Sea region. That's where they had a 6.1 yesterday. Quite a few 4s and 5s. Today, number of 4s and 5s as well. May be looking at some larger activity out here as well. It's been active out here in this area of the world. A lot of earthquakes happening out there. But I got my eyes focused here along the Kuril-Kamchatka and the Nankai Trough. New Zealand, 3-pointer there, North Island, Middle American Trench, and South America area. These are all just very common quakes. They happen all the time. It's a major subduction zone. And on any given day, there's a number of 2s, 3s, and even 4s. So nothing out of the ordinary happening there for now. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Some deeper activity out there off the coast of Italy. The Santorini volcano. Let's go ahead and check this out real quick, see what we got for the latest recorded data. We'll zoom in here to the area. A couple earthquakes in the last 6 hours are going to be in the purple circles there. A little bit of migration southward, right? But those are very small earthquakes. See if we can pull up the recorded seismograph here. I mean, this is right in the middle of the Santorini caldera. Still quite a few earthquakes happening there. You know, a lot of those are smaller ones. I believe that's going to be one of the bigger ones out there. It looks like it may be a 4-pointer. Let's see what we got here. So that was the 24th. Not really concerned about that. It was a couple days ago. I'm looking for some newer activity. 4.2 on the 25th from yesterday. 26. It looks like a 3.9. That's probably what we're seeing there on this graph. But there's quite a few 2s in there. And some smaller quakes still happening. You know, there's still literally probably upwards of 100 or more earthquakes happening every single day still at the Santorini area of Greece. No no volcanic activity yet, but you know, we're still happening. Still got the occasional migration down south here as well, so we'll continue to watch it, see where this leads to. But right now, no new changes happening there. Let's go ahead and check out space weather activity. Pretty quiet since yesterday, down into the sea flare category. Let's look at the solar magnetogram image. Man, this looking a little on the quiet side here, folks. I'm going to have to drop my X-flare potential. This region down here still has a little bit of complexity. It's a massive area, but it's out there pretty much out of sight, out of mind. Soon, within the next day or so, that will be way out on the western limb. And we're going to be left with a couple of these disorganized sunspots. Really nothing of any complexity up here that I see. Overall flare threat right now with that large sunspot there still currently facing us. 25% chance for X flare, M flare at 65, C flare around 99% chance. Proton events have died off, as noted here on the D region absorption map. We got bombarded there with some charged protons over the last couple days from a massive event there on the western limb, not Earth directed. We do have some Earth directed coronal holes here that should amplify the auroras. In a couple days or so, looks like maybe on the 28th, we could see an increase in the high-speed solar wind stream that would kick up the aurora slightly, but nothing major. As far as any close approach asteroids go, well, let's take a look. Nothing of any closeness here. I mean, 185,000 miles for a very small asteroid, 11 foot. That's happening today. Newly discovered, by the way. Another newly discovered 20 foot. That's 500,000 miles away, though. Everything else, millions of miles away. So that's good. That is very good. As far as Storm Prediction Center goes, severe weather, nothing major in the forecast, folks. Just a little bit of generalized thunderstorm activity out there across this area of the country. As we put the models into motion here, there's that low pressure bringing up a little bit of moisture and some storms there across the Ohio area. California, our next shot of rain looks to be as we enter into the first week of March. Got some low pressures out there off the Pacific, bringing in some moisture, and it looks like Southern California may get involved as well. Either way, the model trends are pointing towards an above average month there for precipitation wise, so that's good. One more decent month of rain before it becomes 115 degrees. People don't believe me when it gets 115 degrees out here. I'll start posting that on my channel to show you guys. Chico, California, just outside of Chico here where I live. Oh yeah, it can get hot. We're surrounded by rice fields as well, so what happens is, when the rest of the valley is 110, 115 degrees, that sun beats down on the rice fields, which are flooded with water, and creates kind of like a mini south. If you've ever been down in the south, you got that muggy, humid, high dew points. That's exactly what it feels like here at the ground level because of that moisture that's being evaporated into the air and making it feel like a really thick soup here in Northern California. It's a mini climate out here. I just wish it acted like the south where they got thunderstorms. We just doesn't happen like that here. But yeah, it gets hot down here. It gets the highest ever I recorded, I believe, is 118 here, and that's been within the last 4 to 5 years. But not uncommon to see 110 degree days consistently. Redding, California, oh man, they cook up there as well. So people don't believe it. I've lived here the majority of my life, so I know what I'm talking about. And I don't like it one bit. I do not like it. Anyone wants to come out here and test it out, I'll gladly swap you places there, as long as it's cooler weather. All right, what else we got here, folks? I think that's about it. A couple small earthquakes there on the China Lake Station. We'll keep an eye there on the Nankai Trough, as I mentioned. That's going to be a big focus here, watching for some further signs of maybe seeing some MegaQuake activity out here. Definitely some interesting activity stirring up across this section of the plate in the last 24 hours. So have a good day. I'm going to head outside, probably do some more yard work. It's supposed to be about 73 degrees today. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful weather. I can stand 70s and 80s, maybe even some 90s, but anything above that, it's just too hot. I don't like it. Have a good one. Stay safe out there, folks, and enjoy.